unstable, so we often hear breaks.
Control something. So for example,
Hello, and welcome back to Spawnpoint, now in English, Spawn Different, Game Equal. I'm very happy and very proud that we have some quite interesting guests now on a panel discussion. I would like to welcome Chris Feigl from the Technical University. Hi, Chris. Nice to see you this way.
Hello,
again.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the invite.
Of course, Lea, I'm sorry. Where is she? Hehenberger from the Technical University in Graz.
I think we just lost her. She lost her connection, I think.
Okay. Antonio, we had the privilege to talk to you earlier today. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I'm
of
very
course.
happy to be here.
Hello, Lea Hehenberger. Are you on again? We can see you. Meanwhile, let me welcome Sandro, Odak from Xbox. Nice to see you.
Hello.
And thank you for joining us on this panel discussion. And last but not least, Alex Bloder from Tobii Dynavox.
Hi again.
Welcome back. And fantastic interpreter, fantastic translator. Thank you very much for your service doing the translations here. I would like to try to get connected with Lea again. Can you hear us? Can we hear you?
I think you're muted again, Lea.
Okay, maybe we can use the time to that you introduce yourself briefly. I would like to start with Chris. Just a few words about yourself and your profession, your passion.
Of course, thank you very much, David. Hello, my name is Chris Feigl. I'm working in Vienna at the University of Applied Sciences, and we do assistive technology open source projects since about 10 years. We try to make construction sets to support people, visit hackerspaces, use rapid prototyping stuff to build affordable assistive tools, switch interfaces, mouse controllers, and so on. And my own background is software programming. Actually, the reason for that was when I was a kid, I played a video game with a friend and I was fascinated in computers. So it's somehow like a circle that I can talk now in gaming accessibility issues.
Very good. It makes good sense that you're back from where you started somehow, with all the science in between. Antonio, what is your background? And please introduce yourself a little bit.
Well, my name is Antonio. I'm from Spain. I am the founder and mobility editor for Game Accessibility Nexus. We do reviews on game accessibility. We try to inform the players and the developers about the features, the options, and the gameplay mechanics on games, so they can know if by themselves if a game is suitable for their specific disabilities or not. We do it for mobility, we do it for deaf and hard of hearing, we do it for low vision and blind. We also have some small articles on assistive tools and about accessibility in general. And my background, I started studying computer programming back when I was like 15, but that was like really long ago. So the languages were like COBOL and Turbo C, so that's super outdated. I don't think I can make a game with that, but I ended up being with basic ones when I was like 14, so that's something. And my passion is games, and when I discovered that accessibility was something that was being implemented in games, it opened a door for me that was starting to get close before my disability was progressing very fast, and I was losing the ability to play some types of games, and now I am trying to let people know that this exists and how they can play their games, what games they can play, and tell the developers this is okay, this is how you can improve, and try to help the industry move forward so everybody can play.
Very, very exciting and interesting. Thank you, Antonio. Alex, would you introduce yourself one more time today, briefly?
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for the warm welcome. I'm Alex Bloder. I work for Tobii Dynavox, which is the accessibility part of Tobii. I'm looking for our partners in the DACH area, so German, Austria, Switzerland. And I see myself somehow as a binding element between our customers, which request gaming very often, and our developers on the other end. So I hope to do the connection a little bit closer.
Okay, we will go into that. Thank you very much, Alex. And Sandro, Odak, would you please let us know a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. So thank you for having me. My name is Sandro. I, as you can't oversee, work for Xbox. I've gone beyond everything to brand my office, my home office. I am the communications lead for Xbox in Germany, Austria, and in Switzerland. And really happy to have products like the Xbox Adaptive Controller that I will be talking about a little later in the presentation. But also we have a program at Xbox, it's called Gaming for Everyone. And I'm really happy to be able to work on accessibility and diversity and inclusion, and that I also work at a company that is so passionate about all these topics. And before that, I was a gaming editor for literally all of my life.
Okay.
So I've worked for IGN, GameStar, several other German news sites, and gaming was actually always in my life.
We will come to this point, you know, when or if gaming can you know, lead to some profession to work, like in your case. Lea, can you hear us now? Are you? No. So how should we do that? With brain interface or? Just wait, maybe. Okay. I'm sorry. Very much sorry for that. But there is, when it comes to technology, and this is, I think, bitter point that the only women in our panel discussion now is kicked out. So this is by technology, I hope, and not by any other reason. When it comes to accessible gaming, this is my first question to you. From your very own perspective, what are the issues? I mean, what are the limits? What is the point about accessible gaming from your point of view? And please just talk. I try. If you talk, you know, all at the same time, I will interrupt. But this is the only thing I would like to
So
ask
who
you.
should start?
Yes, just forward the question maybe. However, what are the issues from your point of view when it comes to gaming and accessibility?
Well, if I may start.
Yes. You are in Vienna,
Well,
you're the closest.
Especially when we are looking at like the blockbuster video games or complex video games, computer games, the challenge is that we have so many different activities and inputs and keys, and often parallel joysticks or two joysticks which are needed. And there are so many different kinds of senses addressed. So the challenges in accessible gaming is, of course, to make that game or that experience accessible for everyone. So especially when we look at physical disabilities, it's often hard to use a game in the way it's made, so that it's necessary to have the parallel input of mouse and keyboard, and there are many different keys needed. So the challenge is to, on the one hand, design the games in an accessible way so that it's possible to remap keys and so on, that we use the same keys for the menu and other things. For other kinds of disabilities like the hard of hearing, that we have captions and indications for sounds. So it's a whole challenge to make such a multisensoric game really accessible. And in the events where we cannot make the game accessible for really everyone, how to design assistive tools and assistive technology so that it's still possible to play the game.
Yeah, I want to jump on that and say that, as he said, it's part of the complexity of games these days. Remapping is very important. It's also important how they do it. For example, if you are allowing the same input to be used in different ways, like for example holding toggles, because some people don't have the strength to hold keys. So it comes down to how the game allows you to customize the experience to your own abilities and possibilities, and that has to be done in game. But also it comes, as he said, thanks to assistive tools like the Xbox Adaptive Controller, other type of joysticks, switches. The Tobii eye tracking, for example, eye tracking is, I think, a very powerful tool that is still not used to its full potential by many developers. And also software. For example, when I am playing, I have been able to play many games thanks to using software that translates my inputs into my words into input. So, for example, I can say a specific sentence that I want and make that so the software presses the combination that I want, and I don't need to use my hand if I can move it. So with your personal setup, I think is one of the first things that you need to learn. Like, you need to be able to interface with your console or PC or whatever platform you are playing at, and then we have to take a look at the accessibility in the game. When those two are good, when those two work well together, there are no barriers.
Thank you.
I would add to that because I think there are actually two levels of accessibility in games. There is like the hardware level.
Agree.
And I think some of us have solutions for that. Antonio has just talked about the Xbox Adaptive Controller, but there's also the software level. And I was really impressed by how the gaming industry has changed and starts to really cater to the disabled community, to include accessibility features. I think I hope that we've done a great job with Gears 5, where we have incorporated accessibility from the beginning and from the ground up. And that's also a feedback that I talk in Germany and in German-speaking countries. I talk a lot to small developers, indie developers, and we always ask them, so how are you tackling accessibility? And they say, well, we haven't really thought about that right now. So we might look at it later in game development, but that might be too late. So I'm really happy that right now I think the paradigm shift is towards implementing it far earlier at the beginning of the concept phase of a game, and to think about accessibility from the ground up, because that's when you can make the biggest impact. You can build your game around accessibility instead of changing your game to be more accessible afterwards. And this is, I think, a great shift in development that it's not only visible in our own games, but I think we will have tomorrow a talk from Naughty Dog, from Sony, from Nintendo. So there's so many game developers now who do that from the ground up.
And I fully agree. If you build a house barrier-free from the ground up, it's much definitely more accessible than adding I don't know, an elevator afterwards. Lea, your background now, in your picture is totally different. It seems like you have moved from I don't know, one building to another. You can hear us, I can see. Yes. So
Yeah, I just moved from one side of the room to the other.
Okay.
Changed PC.
Thank you for doing that. And
sorry, those issues I haven't experienced before, and I couldn't fix them, but now I'm back.
And we are very happy, because otherwise it wouldn't be completed, without having you. So welcome, Lea, to this panel discussion. Could you please introduce yourself briefly, where you are based, where your room, where you can change from one side to the other, where that is, and what do you do in profession?
All right, my name is Lea Hehenberger. I work at the Institute of Neural Engineering at the Graz University of Technology in Graz. My office here is basically my home office. But yeah, usually I'm based on the Graz University of Technology, where I work as a PhD student, as a project assistant. And the reason I'm here today is actually because I'm part of a student team, which is called Mirage 91. We're also called the Graz BCI racing team because we participate in a competition, which is called the BCI race, where we have a pilot, a disabled pilot who races in a computer game race with a BCI, which is a brain-computer interface.
It sounds totally exciting, and we will talk about that later. I think also tonight. May I ask you, the chair in the back of your, or it looks like a professional gaming chair. Are you into gaming as well, or is it just
I would say
a side effect from?
It would be maybe even generous to describe myself as a casual gamer. However, my husband is a quite passionate gamer, and so this is his chair, and so he also recommended me one of these, and they're not only good for gaming but also good for
home
working
office. Yeah.
Home office, exactly.
What is your view on accessible gaming? I mean, what do you think? How important that is?
I think it's very, very important. Like even though I wouldn't describe myself as like a serious gamer, I know a lot of people that are very much into that, and I think it's like a very common activity that ranges from hobby to profession, and even for people that just do it in their free time, it can be like a really important part of their lives. And I think it's an activity that's not like, it doesn't have like an inherent, there shouldn't be an inherent barrier why you shouldn't be able to participate in that just because you have a physical disability. It's not like it's like something that's physically not possible. It's the barrier is more like really just created, I would say. And I think that like, for example, for people that are gamers and then maybe they have an accident, or they have like an illness or something that's where they then suffer a disability, then I think being able to have access to gaming again can also be really important to regain their quality of life. So I mean, even if I don't have a gaming background, that's a topic that I have a little bit of a background in, because I mean, in brain-computer interface research, this is kind of a central point that like everything we do, we deal with different kinds of applications, but the central point is that we do research so that at some point people can benefit from that and they can regain access to parts in their lives that they otherwise could not.
Yes, thank you. So it's and you also talked about that, Sandro. At the end, when it comes to accessible gaming, maybe this all is based also on as you mentioned, Lea. Someone is a gamer, has an accident for some reason, and then wants to game again, or getting back to gaming. That creates a kind of awareness, how to do that, and so on. So my question would be, like, Chris, for you as a guy from the university, when you talk about accessible gaming to your, I don't know, donators, or to, you know, is it a topic that is easy to transport, you know, to receive funding money, or is it something where people say, why gaming? I mean, gaming is just a, you know, a thing that has no relation to real science, or no benefit for the society, or things like that. What are your arguments?
Regarding this question, I can only emphasize and underline what Lea just said, that gaming can really improve people's lives. It can have a huge impact, especially for people who are severely constrained in their mobility, and now they can actually run, they can drive cars, but not only that, I think in gaming there's something in it for everyone. So it's starting from really basic cause and effect things, where you see that you interact with the screen by eye gaze, for example, and something happens, you cannot do anything wrong, up to playing chess on like grandmaster level, if you prefer that. So gaming is also a social activity, it's interaction, and it's a whole world which can be opened by having access to gaming. And as Lea said, it can really have also positive effects on therapy and on motivation. And I think this is something we see also very good when we look at what Gamers Outreach do. I don't know if you know them. They started as a small high school project, and they emerged to a big enterprise who built gaming cards for like a majority of the pediatric hospitals in the US. So they have many game cards which are there in the hospitals, where kids can have access to computer games. And yeah, I think this really makes a difference. And it's something everybody understands, even donators who are looking for a good cause which they can support.
And I would also add something again.
Exactly, Sandro.
Sorry.
I just wanted to ask you, from the commercial, I would say, and the big game side, hardware, software. I mean, why and how accessibility? Does it pay off?
Well, if you look at why people are gaming, I think everyone has a desire to be entertained, and we at Xbox, we believe that everyone also deserves entertainment and also deserves participation. And if I can just follow up to what Chris just said, is and also Lea just said, participation is really the key, because gaming is nowadays, I would say that, but you don't have to take me for granted, but I would say it's the leading cultural medium of this generation. People are not just gaming for fun. It's really it's a piece of culture, and for many, especially young people, it's also a great way to communicate, because they play together. I know that it's weird for outsiders that if you play against each other, but you're still doing it together. And I at least know that from my own experience. I play a lot with my friends, and especially in the past year when I couldn't visit my friends, we play games together. We connect over Xbox Live, over Steam, over Discord. We talk to each other while we play together, and I think this is the most important thing, that gaming is not something that you do alone at home. It's something that opens up a complete new world, and a world of connections and of people that you can meet. And this is, I think, key to everyone right now in this pandemic, where everyone is like constrained and has to stay at home. But if you haven't been able to participate in gaming before, and now you can literally do what all the other kids are doing. This is the way, if I can say it in the Mandalorian speak. Alex, you're having your microphone.
May I add something? I would say playing is inherent. So inherent. Young children start with playing shortly after birth, and usually this continues until shortly before death, probably. We all need and we like to play games. And for people with disabilities, this is even more important because they don't have the same possibilities as normal children have, for example. So they can't move things in front of their eyes with their hands, for example. They need to do similar things with their computer. And don't forget to the community outside, to all the game developers, from small gamers become big gamers. So the development of gaming is also, it starts as a child and it continues to adolescence, to being an adult.
So if I can follow up on Alex, I was a kid that used to play little with my friends because, you know, they like to run, they like to do things like Alex said, physical activity. I was the one that was reading, playing with his action figures. So when I discovered my first computer, I was like, it was a Spectrum. You can imagine how old that was. I was like 10 years old. It opened the world to me to do everything. I was able to fight the villains and all that stuff. And now that I am older, I began to play competitively, also cooperatively. And when you play with your other friends, whether they are disabled or not, you are part of something. You are working towards an objective, and that feels empowering. And you can complement each other. For example, when I play with my friend Victor, he has low vision, and I have low mobility. So he's basically, I am his eyes and he's my hands. He kills everyone. I can spot them for him, and it creates this bond that is very, very powerful.
Exactly. I'd like to add one more thing. I can remember one of our users, she said, back in the days when we introduced that asteroids game where you can just shoot asteroids with your eyes. And first time she was playing this, she said, this is so good for me because I get rid of all my frustrations and all of my accusations. She had no other possibility. You know, we do walk into the forest or destroy something or whatever. And for our users, for heavily disabled people, they don't have this possibility. They have to get rid of their accusation and frustration in any other way.
I got a question from our listeners. One is for you, Alex, and the question is from a quite good friend of mine, Sarah from London. She's an eye gaze user, and she desperately wants to play Pac-Man and Tetris, and this is not possible yet. She's asking when. And if you don't have an answer to that, maybe our friend from the university could let you know how to play Pac-Man with eye gaze, maybe. Or maybe Sandro has an answer to that, or Antonio. I don't know. Or maybe Lea with husband. So, how to play Pac-Man with eye gaze?
Well, as I described before, this is a request that really often comes to us. I, as an eye gaze user, want to be able to play a regular game that I download from Microsoft Store or just play online or whatever. As long as not each and every game developer has integrated our software development kit into their game. It's our task to make sure that you can play any game with the eye tracker, for example. So we have to make sure that our software delivers the solution for an eye tracking user to interact with any game that he sees. This is our task. It will last some more time, so I don't have the answer for Sarah, but yeah, we're working on it.
Please, Christoph.
This brings me to a point which I would like to address, because especially for people with motor disabilities, it can be a challenging situation to make assistive tools which really fit their needs. Starting from mounting solutions which have to be very, very individual, to also combining suitable sensors that really tap the potential these people have. We can combine sensors, we can try to find suitable input methods, and therefore we built a software framework called Asterix. And I think it should be possible using Asterix to create keyboard input like keystrokes for playing Pac-Man by just using the Tobii trackers. Because they are supported in this Asterix framework. It works like a graphical programming environment. You have this eye gaze input, and you make a decision if you look left, right, up or down, and then you create a keyboard keystroke which does up, down, left or right on the cursor keypad. So I think we could take a look at that. And this is also what we can do at the university. We can build quite individual setups, combining different kinds of sensors. And the Tobii eye tracking device is a very nice and important sensor for that. And also the Xbox adaptive controller is a very nice device for integrating different hardware. So I want to give a shout out to both of you. Thank you for bringing this to the market. And also I want to ask you for staying creative and supporting the developers community with SDK licenses which are accessible like for the Asterix environment, so that we can continue to build such flexible solutions.
I would say that has been actually our goal when we and I'm not a developer, I'm a communications guy, so I wasn't there at the time, but I believe, and that's my understanding, is that was our goal from the beginning, to create something that is universally adaptable, that you can use. And that's also a feedback that I got from many indie developers. Oh, we didn't really think about it. What do we have to do? What do we have to develop to integrate Xbox Adaptive Controller? And I tell them nothing. If you use like the standard gamepad controller inputs, it's already there in all Xboxes and on all Windows 10 PCs. So my vision for the future is that this development continues, and like there will be at some point in the future like the standard that everything maps to. It doesn't have to be ours. I'm really happy if someone else also steps in, but it was our goal from the beginning to have something that you can just plug and play regardless of what type of input you have, and that everything kind of connects to the Xbox Adaptive Controller more as a hub than a controller in itself.
May I like to add to what Alex said, because of course, Alex, you said if the developers use your SDK, they can create a better experience, like for the Pac-Man idea. Of course, it would be better to have a Pac-Man game where you have the SDK support. So, for example, you look directly at Pac-Man and can control it by just gazing to up, left, right or down, which would be better. But using Asterix or other tools we can still build workarounds which can be built quite efficiently and fast. So it's also a good prototyping environment. We could also add a PCI support if Lea, for example, provides data from a BCI system where we have movement imagination or P300 going on, and we have a control signal coming out of that system, we can run a game on the same computer and create keyboard keystrokes out of that BCI signal, for example. And we do that with EMG signals also, because we don't have access to logged-in patients who really need BCI. Yeah.
Lea, may I ask you, thank you very much. Pac-Man, I mean, you mentioned Cybertron, so that's something you have to tell us a little bit more, and you will at 9 p.m. But you know, just with your brain interface device playing Pac-Man, is that an easy thing, or have you done that already, or is it just, you know, difficult, or I don't know? Was it ever a task, Pac-Man and PCI?
Not exactly. In general, I have to answer this a bit broader. It's a kind of a nuanced question. The bigger problem in this case, especially with non-invasive methods, is still that it's not that straightforward to extract control features that are really good and really reliable. So it's the main issue, I would say, is still on the performance side of the BCI input. So this is still a work in progress, I would say. If you assume that you have basically, let's say, a certain number of commands that you can translate, then the rest is not so complex, because then you can just map the commands. And for example, in the Cybertron, without going too much into detail, we just have basically this race, and we have basically 3 possible inputs to the game, and so and some parts where you have to give no input, and so you have either 3 commands, or in our case we have 4 commands, so we can also reliably not give any input, and there you're basically on the input side. The game where you put the control commands to doesn't really care what you're really extracting from the game. That's basically a design decision, and it depends on what's intuitive for the user, and what's because if you have commands or mental tasks that are very different from what you're actually triggering, then of course there's some in the user's brain, some internal computations going on, another level of abstraction. But just in general, if you can have a certain number of reliable control commands, then sending this to whatever application is not so difficult. It's just that it's kind of tricky to get reliable commands, and especially this gets exponentially harder the more commands you have. So you can have with some users that are pretty good at producing certain patterns, you can have pretty good control with 2 commands, for example. But when you get to 3 commands, 4 commands, it already gets pretty tricky, and so that's the main issue, I would say.
Thank you. I got a question from through the chat. Are there esports for people with disabilities? Do you know about that?
I don't think there are esports that are specifically designed for people with disabilities, but I don't think that there needs to be, because I think that with proper accessibility, everybody can play the games at their own level. And just like there are the Special Olympics, we could have special esports based on normal games, but just allowing you to use the adaptations and the setup that you need to play the game. That wouldn't be considered cheating or something like that. It would be impossible to consider it like that. And it should be a reality right now, to be honest.
So it's just maybe the time now to form an esport team with people with disabilities, or put them in a house and train them and let them win Fortnite or whatever. Do you think it's time for that?
There are really good players of Fortnite that are disabled, and in many other games. I have friends that are blind or low vision, and they can beat anyone at Street Fighter. Like, if you ever doubt it, I dare you to challenge them and see how they kick your ass. Sorry for the word.
And you talked also. Sorry, there was also. Of course, we mentioned, the pandemic, home office, and so on. So everyone now gets a sense for remote work, or working remotely. A very nice dog just walked in and joined us, right, Lea? I think animals are also very important, no? Beside gaming. We at LiveTool, for example, at the moment, we look at robot cats for people with dementia and emotions that these cats are able to create. But this is another issue and another discussion, maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a just very quickly, because you mentioned it, as a person that got a puppy a month ago and that's been living in this home office situation for about a year now, I totally subscribe to your statement.
Right. Well, my question would be, do you think, everyone does now, working time and location independent, remotely, collaboration, working on something together, is this a chance for people with disabilities to get jobs they wouldn't, never ever think of? Because everyone understands now that you can, once once you have your assistive technology that allows you to, access computer, to access education and everything, that disability will change to abilities for gaining jobs in the future we don't think about yet?
I think that one thing that confinement has shown us and this pandemic is that a lot of things that the disability community has been asking for a long time, like having doctor appointments on phone or remote work, and were disregarded like not possible or not practical, had been seen that they can be done. It's just the volunteer of the government and the authorities or in the industry when they want and they feel like they need to use it. Because right now we are having all kind of medical consultations by phone, when it is by video call or just regular phone call. And in terms of work, it's the same. If you don't need to go to work right now because there is a pandemic, what is the difference when there is not the pandemic? There is no difference. And if a person is able to work from their home in these circumstances, no matter if they're disabled, the opportunity should be there. They should raise awareness and give new opportunities. I just hope that all this that is happening right now serves as a lesson, and we take this opportunity to grow up as a society and give a chance to disabled people, because they are worth the opportunity and they are worth the work, because they can do the same job as anybody else.
I would like to totally agree to what Antonio says. We know from some employees that the fear of companies hiring people with disabilities is not only the fear that do they really a good job or so, they have to do some adjustments to the workplace. So probably if it starts with an accessible toilet or some room for resting or whatever. Now that we have seen that working from home office is possible, why shouldn't we offer these possibilities to people with handicap who are able to do good jobs, to some extent to better jobs than people without disabilities? So my hope is that exactly this comes to true, what you said, David. if this pandemic shows one good thing, then it's the thing that the workplace should be open for all people.
Thank you, Alex. I would like to, if you could make a wish, each one of you, in terms of accessible gaming, what would that be? You have mentioned the interface, for example, or some standard for, no matter if it's open source or commercial, no matter if it's a big company or indie. So no wishes?
Maybe a wish would be that we don't need accessibility reviews and special accessibility forums anymore, because it becomes like mainstream. But probably this is a far way to go.
Yeah, I think that's a bit going too far to go. We have seen that the industry is right now, and even mainstream media is someone interested in this stuff. Like, for example, in the Game Awards, there was an accessibility category this year, and it's going to be there starting this year all years, which is very important, and included people with disabilities in the nominating jury. So my desire is that one day, when I have to make a review, I can always go and say, you can play the game. And that's it. And I only have to like put pictures of the game and show them the options and tell them how interesting and how fun it is to play the game. And I only have to tell people, this game is the one that you might not be able to play, instead of like accessibility being something extraordinary, it should become the norm. That's what my dream.
I would have the wish that the accessibility should be integrated in the development process right from the start. So as you said before, building a house and afterwards make it accessible, it's the wrong way. So building that house with accessibility in mind delivers better experience.
Is this, Sandro, a cost issue, or you know, like with architects?
No, actually, it's not. So if you do accessibility from the start up and from ground up, if you think about your game mechanics with accessibility in mind and with what adaptive and assistive technology you want to support, it's like, I'm again not a developer. It might actually take some programming, but I would say that it's easier when you do it at the beginning, and that's actually my wish as well. That more developers, that it kind of gets to a standard, that at the start of the development, at like the conceptive phase of when you think about, this is how my game mechanics should work, this is how my gameplay should work, that every developer thinks about, well, how can I make sure that everyone can participate, and that then in the end you don't come like to the review process, to the final QA, and someone asks, well, have you thought about a colorblind mode? Well, no, and now, to be honest, we have to ship next week, we can't add a colorblind mode now. We can't add adaptive the adaptive controller setting, which you don't have to add because it's already integrated. But if you think about it, like in the last step of the process of developing and finishing a game, it's too late. And my wish is that this really comes forward to the beginning, to the first steps. And if you do that at the beginning, it will be far easier. And I'm really sure that if you do it at the beginning, you won't have to change anything, or maybe just slightly change stuff. And it won't actually be such a huge problem at the end.
I got a
question. So yes, it's totally economically viable. And if you develop a game, please think about accessibility from the start. Or if you've already started, then think about it right now.
And there's a question also I got from through the chat. Do game developers recognize an increase of demand for more adapted games for various disabilities? So I know that there are not game developers on this panel, but do you believe there's an increase?
Okay.
Go on,
Chris
Christoph.
might have actual numbers. I certainly don't have actual numbers, but if you look at the interest that the media has in that subject, if you look at, for example, the game awards that hand out awards to accessibility, and if you look at the biggest blockbuster games in every year, like Gears 5 or The Last of Us Part 2, or every single Nintendo game, they already do that, and it should be a sign that if they do that, it's probably also an economically viable point.
Yes, we know from the developers that there is more interest every time. I get DMs, I get communication with developers from indie to big that ask, okay, for example, indie developers always come, I'm releasing my first game, it is this one, I'm really interested in accessibility, how can I make the game playable for more people? And the interest is there. They know the younger generations are more open because, like, you know, they have come to the industry when this is booming, but the other generations, past generations, are also open to it. The people that are working on Xbox, on PlayStation, on Ubisoft, and on many other studios, they are not like really coming now into gaming development, but they are really into it. So yeah, the demand is there.
I would also say, I mean, I can only talk from our point of view. The requests are rising from year to year. So the demand is from the gamer side is definitely there.
I would also say that the work Antonio is doing with the Game Accessibility Nexus, or people at Can I Play That are doing, is raising awareness and building up consciousness for the importance of gaming accessibility. And that actually this is also having an impact on the game industry, because the developers, they have good reviews. Actually, they have expert testers for free, and celebrating their accessibility support if it is good, yeah, or also criticizing games which are not accessible anymore. So it's contributing to raising consciousness on the importance of game accessibility, and also showing that accessible games are easier playable and give a better user experience for everyone.
What do you think about, and maybe this is my last question, because it's time is running. Somehow it's very interesting discussing with you. Early intervention, kids with disabilities. What do you think? When should, at what point or what time, like with 6 months or 3 years or 5 years? At what point should they start gaming with? You know, brain development, you learn a new language better when you are, I don't know, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. And that could be a skill, like you've mentioned, some of you have mentioned that you closed a circle now with accessible gaming, because you started very early with 13, 14 with computer games. So what do you think, at what time, at what point of a young life should gaming
I'm not an expert on that, but
me
I think that
neither, but
regarding communication, regarding communication, you can't start soon enough. But regarding games and computer use and smartphone use, it's of course a decision where also the parents should consider different kinds of things, like to what extent it is beneficial for the child to use digital technology. So I think this could get a very big discussion, and you need to think about various aspects to give an informed decision here.
So we should continue that next year with a separate panel.
If you're talking about maybe mobility, I think it should be taken step by step, like part of their therapy. So if a kid has a physical disability and they're going to have to be doing therapy all their life to keep their muscles in shape or something like that. It's important to start doing it when you can. When I was 3 years old, it was too soon, probably. But right now, maybe when you're 5 or something like that, the kid is going to start resisting to doing therapy because it's every day taking time of their day. And if you are playing games, you're moving your arms, you're exercising, you are keeping your hands agile, and they're having fun. So that's a way for them to exercise what they're realizing. And it could be very positive also for their mind, for socialization, for playing with other kids. They are not going to feel so different anymore, which is something that can be very isolating. And in this way, it is not. You are just being part of this thing that everybody is doing.
Thank you very much. I just got the information that we should close down. So it was fun talking to you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your passion in terms of accessibility and accessible gaming. Good luck for everything you do. We see each other again. Thank you very much.
And then in real life, I hope.
Thank you for the translation.
Thank you.
Thank you.